back. You're still watching the Daily Debate. Engineer Hassan Shabaan, thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. As we were speaking about the importance of boosting the bilateral ties between Egypt and France, today we have witnessed the arrival, or Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati was heading from Egypt to Seoul to be participating in the African-Korean ministerial meeting. How do you see the importance of boosting the bilateral ties between the African continent in general and South Korea, as we did see in the past months, the boosting of bilateral ties between France and the African continent in Kenya? Forward.
Well, definitely the African continent is waking up, and you know, with a lot of chances for major projects and business in Africa. A lot of countries are being interested right now to invest and cooperate with African countries, actually. France had some problems, a few years ago, but I think they are on the right track right now, and they are correcting their path with the African countries, and it's going to be a win-win situation. Also, Korea, China, all of the Far East countries are very interested in cooperation with Africa, actually. Though Africa was exhausted, from occupation and negative politics in the past, but still, Africa is a very rich continent with the raw materials, and I think we will witness a breakthrough in Africa, a cooperation between countries like Korea, like China, even France, with a new attitude. It's going to be a little bit different from how it used to be in the past.
Yes, and finally, regarding the latest developments in the Middle East, the expansion of the military incursion into South Lebanon by the Israeli occupation forces, Egypt condemned it in the strongest terms today.
Yes, unfortunately, Israel is, using, the fight against Hezbollah, and they're expanding, and they're not really considering any sovereignty for the Lebanese Republic, and I think Israel is taking advantage of the situation, generally speaking, in the Middle East. What happened between Israel and the States from one side and Iran from the other side. They're taking advantage of trying to once and for all, annihilate Hezbollah from existence in the south of Lebanon, actually. Hopefully, by the time this war will be over, Lebanon will regain sovereignty over its territory, because we've learned in the past that the Israeli appetite to expansion and taking over land is unlimited. So hopefully Israel will withdraw from south of Lebanon once the conflict in the Middle East is over.
Engineer Hassan Shabaan, you mentioned that one of the main goals, if not the main announced goal by the Israeli occupation forces in South Lebanon, is to be obliterating and annihilating the arm of Iran, Hezbollah, in South Lebanon. Do you think that they will be ever able to do that?
It's been going on for some time, actually. Since the issue of how they assassinated the leaders of Hezbollah a few months ago, and the war against Iran, which is the mother country for Hezbollah, actually. I think definitely what's happening in south of Lebanon will affect the capabilities of Hezbollah, because we have to consider the fact that Hezbollah did not really cooperate with the Lebanese government, and it actually imposed a lot of pressure over the sovereignty of Lebanon. So actually, I hope that Hezbollah and the Lebanese government will be able to find a way to communicate and cooperate to the benefit of Lebanon, actually. But definitely Israel is taking advantage of how the Lebanese government felt that it's a burden to have such a party in south of Lebanon, actually.
Yes, and we have seen President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi ever since the war began between the United States and Israel and Iran in the month of February, positioning Egypt as a main pillar of peace and as a mediator between every possible party in the conflict, in this conflict. How do you see the importance of this positioning by President al-Sisi? And do you think that the rest of the world, the rest of the regional powers are viewing Egypt as a capable mediator to be ending those conflicts?
To be honest with you, the role we're playing right now in the Middle East and worldwide actually is what should have been going on for some time, actually. We are an acceptable mediator. We have a treaty with Israel, actually. We respected our Camp David treaty with Israel, and we've experienced peace, we've experienced war, and we are in a journey for development. And you know, President Sisi is playing a very positive role right now. You know, Turkey, Egypt and Pakistan are leading the negotiations between the United States and Iran,
yes.
Actually. We have to consider the fact that though we enjoy excellent relationship with Saudi, but we did not really interfere in the war between the Houthis and Saudi.
Yes.
And we maintain, you know, an open door policy with the Houthis, and actually this gave us a leading position with the Iranians. You have to consider the fact that we have a good relationship with Iran, and you know, we are playing a major role to cool off the war in the Middle East, actually. It's a very wise role. We should have been doing this for some time.
Yes.
Nobody will drag us to conflicts that could be resolved by, you know, in a peaceful manner. So I think we will continue to play this role because we're very successful in it, and we earned the respect of a lot of the peace-loving countries in Europe and the Middle East, actually. And I hope it will result fruitful results soon.
Yes, Egypt always insisted that the political path is the only acceptable way out of this conflict. In your opinion, do you think that this is close to be going out of this conflict through peaceful means?
This is very true if you're playing politics. But when you deal with a country that headed with a president like President Donald Trump, who thinks that, you know, the politics that doesn't have positive economical results are a failure. So definitely we're going to have to put this in mind when we deal with the situation in the Middle East.
Yes.
You know, the United States, you know, are following a politics where, you know, if the diplomacy did not result fruitful economical results, it's a failure. So any result will have to be translated into figures and numbers, and I hope this will not affect in a negative way the negotiations in the Middle East right now, which is going on quietly. But I hope that the ambitious program that President Donald Trump will not spoil the diplomatic efforts that's been exerted right now.
This businessman mentality of the U.S. President Donald Trump, do you think that it has benefited him so far, especially that he got into conflicts with Venezuela, for example, and he got some economic benefits out of it with Iran? Again, some economic benefits, or at least that is his mentality. Dealing with other countries, especially like China, like Russia, the Asian countries, and even the smaller countries, any country that has an economic transaction with the U.S., he had sanctions against them for an economic benefit in his mind. Do you think that it has benefited him so far?
Well, President Donald Trump as a businessman definitely benefited him. But when it comes to the Middle East, and we have, a proposal from the U.S. to make peace in the Middle East, generally speaking, yes. Utilizing the conflict between Iran and the U.S. and Israel to impose peace in the Middle East. Well, I think in the Middle East it's going to be a little bit different, because it takes two to tango, actually. So if President Donald Trump will benefit from this peace, also the countries in the Middle East should benefit from this peace, actually. Just imposing peace without really having fruitful results for both sides, it will be useless, actually. So as I said, it takes two to tango, and I think President Donald Trump knows that very well, and hopefully when we actually approach a final peace negotiation in the Middle East, it will not be forced. It will actually be it will as I said, it's going to be a win-win situation, not really by threatening or by pressurizing the Middle East countries, actually. We have to be convinced that this peace will be fruitful, and we will benefit, all of us, from this peace, actually. I hope. We've heard a lot of the news about the communication and the calls between the conference calls between President Donald Trump and the leaders and the presidents, yes, in the Middle East. I hope that the U.S., being the leading superpower right now, and you have to consider that the U.S. represents all the countries in the world, because actually the population of the U.S. is a mixture of from all the countries, right, different, yes, countries around the world. So actually we don't want to be disappointed. Actually, we don't want politics just for politics. We need the U.S. to look in an overall look over the Middle East area, meaning, when you try to impose peace, what are you going to do with the Palestinians? What are you going to do with Gaza? What are you going to impose peace and just annihilate the Palestinians? You have the Nakab desert, actually, in Israel. The total population of the Nakab population in Israel is less than 250,000.
Yes.
And you could actually put a lot of Palestinians over there and develop the area. You could actually resolve the problem over the East Africa over water. There is a lot of good ideas, actually, to build a lot of dams and conserve a lot of water that seeps to the Gulf of Aden, and transfer this oil by pipelines to the Nakab area, turn it to a green area, if Saudi Arabia could finance this project, they will benefit from that. Egypt will definitely will appreciate this, because once we get like another 50 billion cubic meters of water, we will be able to turn our western desert to Greenland.
Yes.
So actually the Egyptian people will appreciate this very much. You don't have to impose things. You have, as I said, it takes two to tango. So, you know, you want peace and we want peace. But is your peace suitable to us? But, you know, we have to consider, you know, the economical results. As long as we're dealing with a president whose background is business, we also need to consider the results, the economical results of peace in Egypt, for instance. You know, I think solving the problem in the Renaissance Dam, this will actually be very much appreciated, and all the area will, you know, be very grateful to the U.S. efforts, if ever it happens. A lot of ideas, actually. You know, the freedom of water pathways, Bab el-Mandab, Hormuz, all of these, you know, critical waterways.
Yes.
You know, I think Egypt should have more presence in the Gulf of Aden to observe, you know, the freedom of, you know, movement of ships through Bab el-Mandab. There is a lot of ideas that actually could be applied in this area, and it will create a lot of presence for the Egyptian, you know, Navy in this particular area. I think we need to consider a different type of cooperation between Egypt and the Middle East country, generally speaking,
yes,
and the U.S. Definitely, there will be a new Iran after this war is over, definitely. But again, it takes a lot of diplomacy, and you know, I hope that wisdom will, you know, win in the end.
As you mentioned, Engineer Hassan Shabaan, that the American president has a background as a businessman, but on the other hand, there is always a change of tone when he comes to be speaking about Egypt or the Egyptian president, and more specifically when he was in Sharm el-Sheikh and signing the deal alongside President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the deal to be having a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip between the fighters of Hamas and the Israeli occupation forces. Why there is always a change of tone? There seems to be a brotherly relationship between both presidents. The U.S. president is always referring to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi as a great friend, a great leader. The people love him here in Egypt, and this is something that we're not used to when we are hearing the statements of the U.S. President Donald Trump about other presidents, about other countries, especially the countries in the region and other countries worldwide that he has economic hassles with.
Well, to be honest with you, you know, observing the behavior of President Donald Trump, actually, yes, it's all of what he said is very nice, but I would be very careful, because this is again a business attitude. You know, in business, actually, things that you put on the table might be completely different from what you actually hide in your pocket.
Yes.
So I think in Egypt we are very wise, and you know, let's see results and proof that you know, our policy in Egypt and in the Middle East is really appreciated by the U.S. You know, I was, you know, I grew up in the States.
Yes.
I got my education, postgraduate education in the States. All of the slogans that we've learned when we were young, are not being applicable right now, and we've learned that in the U.S.
Yes.
Hopefully, we will see a comeback to, because the American president is raising the slogan "American First." Okay, this is a very patriotic slogan.
But is he popular right now with all the wars that he got the U.S. in?
I don't think he's popular, but again, if being patriotic, I mean, we also in Egypt and the Middle East, Egypt first. We all love our countries, and we like to see peace rule over, and I think in the coming era, from now till the end of the year, things will move very fast, and a lot of very important events will take place.
Yes, and speaking about Egypt first, this needs a balance, more specifically between the leaders of the countries. As you mentioned that the U.S. President Donald Trump, he had conducted phone calls with several Arab leaders and regional leaders, including President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and afterwards we have seen President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi conducting another phone call or receiving a phone call from the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. So this balance, how would you assess it, especially during those tough times in the Middle East?
I really appreciate this very much. I mean, there is a lot of wisdom and a lot of effort is being exerted. Actually, Egypt is playing a very good role, to win the confidence of the Iranian government, to play a mediator and connect between the U.S. and Iran. This is a step in the right direction. Hopefully, our relationship with the U.S. is a little bit different from the relationship between, of course, Israel and the United States. But again, we are allies because we are a loving peace, a peace-loving country, actually.
Yes.
So actually, I think we actually will play a very important role in the coming few months, and between Egypt and Turkey and Pakistan, I think a lot of good ideas will come up, actually.
And speaking about the next months and the past few days, we have seen several proposals going back and forth through Pakistan to the United States and Iran that a deal could be reached soon, and then in the past 24 hours the statements of the U.S. President Donald Trump and the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying that the resumption of the war between the U.S. and Iran could be easy and fast moving as well.
Let me put it this way.
Yes.
In order to resolve the whole situation, actually, you have to be fair to both sides. I mean, you cannot really just prevent Iran from, having its nuclear program, and at the same time, you just ignore the Israeli reactor. So actually, if this will take place, I think the Middle East, all of the Middle East area should be clear of nuclear activities, actually. And this is fair. We're not, we're not asking for something impossible. Egypt have signed, the agreement to eliminate, nuclear weapons in worldwide. Our neighbors in Israel did not sign it. And you are asking Iran to stop your nuclear activities. I mean, why don't you just impose, being a superpower, you just say that the Middle East will be a clear area of nuclear activities, full stop. And this way you will win the confidence of all the countries in the area.
Do you think that the resumption or Iran having a nuclear project altogether is the main sticking point between the U.S. and Iran now?
I think the U.S. is magnifying this issue to complete pressure over, pressurizing Iran. Actually, you have to consider that Iran actually, though they had sanctions for so many years, they did not collapse. Agriculturally, they are self-sufficient, oil and gas, raw materials, everything. Iran appreciate, deserve to be appreciated, I think, and it's playing a very major role right now. And I think Iran, after this events, will be completely different Iran from what it used to be in the last 30, 40 years.
Is it just Iran or the Middle East in general would be different?
Definitely, generally speaking, the Middle East will be affected, yes.
And speaking about the Middle East, how did you see the response of Egypt and the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the messages of support sent from President al-Sisi and of course Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati for the past 3 or 4 months to the Arab Gulf states, the GCC countries, and more specifically to Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait, as we have seen several visits paid by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to those countries and meeting with the leaders of those GCC countries?
As I said, Egypt's playing an excellent role. I mean, once Egypt, sent these support messages to the Gulf states, actually, and its coordination with Iran, because Egypt is an acceptable partner to Iran.
A mediator.
A mediator.
Yes.
And the Egyptian presence in the Gulf states is acceptable to Iran, actually, because actually we're not attacking Iran, of course. We're just trying to protect our friends against somebody who's attacking them, because you don't really know who's attacking who. Because a few weeks ago we discovered that there is a base, an air base in Iraq that belongs to Israel. So I think Egypt's playing a very important role, being present in the back of our friends in the Gulf and our brothers in the Gulf is acceptable to Iran. They don't see that this is an aggression or anything. And I think Egypt will be a very important partner in the peace negotiation in the Middle East in the coming few weeks, because I think once the ceasefire will be permanent between the U.S. and Iran, we will definitely see a lot of efforts from the U.S. to massage the Middle East and come up with something called the new Middle East.
Yes, Engineer Hassan Shabaan, the political analyst and the former vice chairman of the Farmers Syndicate, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.